Okay, hi. Well, welcome to this short video on the 10 key ingredients to a killer first meeting. The background behind this video was really as a response to a number of our clients that said to me, Anric, that was a great meeting and a great discussion. Is there any way that you could record that for me in a video so that I could share it with my team? Because it's not just useful for the sales and marketing side, but also useful for internally. So here goes. As you probably gather, I'm not a professional videographer and I sometimes cringe about making videos, but I'm going to give it my best shot to give you what I think are the top 10 key ingredients to a killer meeting. These ingredients and this framework has helped me personally to have single meetings that have resulted in sales of 50 million, 100 million, and the biggest was ever 125 million from one single meeting. Okay. And it all starts with point number one. That's kind of obvious, is to set your key intentions or your outcomes for the meeting right at the start. Actually, even better, write them out and send them in advance. And it's because it's better to be rejected before you get there, before you've jumped on an aircraft or chartered a jet to go there. If it's not a good fit, know in advance. Oprah Winfrey has a wonderful thing that she does. Before every meeting, whether it's internal or external, she writes and she discusses with her team, what is the intention for this meeting? What is important? What matters? What is our outcome? What are we trying to achieve by this meeting? Secondly, share key information that will be needed before the meeting. Most people don't know what I'm talking about here because they're so accustomed to giving the information during the meeting. But if you need to make a decision during a meeting, or you're expecting a decision from somebody else during the meeting, shouldn't the group have that information that they need in advance of the meeting, right? So send any documents, any reports, any analysis, whatever you need to the participations in advance. Because holding a meeting just to share information, I think is a terrible intention. It's unproductive, it wastes everybody's time, and it's lazy. So great meetings result in decisions. What, who, and when. And sometimes you need information and backup to make those decisions. Make sure people have that in advance, because then you can have a clear direction, clear accountability, and clear time frames. So even small achievements need to be framed that way. Even small meetings can be framed that way. Which brings me to point number 3, and which is probably the most important and the most kind of out there. Authentic is 1,000 times better than perfect. You see, when you're trying to be too perfect and you're too coiffed and you're too infallible and everything is perfect and over-engineered, you see, people can't engage with you. And the only way to really truly build trust with people is if you're authentic. So I'm not saying, try and be authentic. Just be authentic. There's a big difference, because even if you are a little strange, and we discussed that in some of our training modules, it's critical to be authentic because it makes it, number one, it makes the meeting much easier because you just naturally roll into the place where you're comfortable. But secondly, people get to meet the real you. And when they meet the real you, that's when they start appreciating you. Even if you're quirky or weird like me, people will just appreciate that. And that allows you to be humble because you're not showing off all the time. And people hate that. And when you're too perfect, they spend the whole meeting trying to find the flaws. And if you're just humble right from the beginning, it just sets the tone and it's so much easier. Because that brings me to point number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Every meeting, even a second meeting or a follow-up meeting, needs 3 parts. 1 is obvious, the introduction. Number 2, the body. And number 3, the conclusion. Let me go through those. The intro, this is critically important. And this is the only part that I believe you should script, you should write it out, you should practice it, and you should memorize that part. I realized that a long time ago because I used to just go up on stage with 2,000 people, 3,000 people, and I would just be winging it. And because it came from a confidence that I can deal with anything that you throw at me. but I wasn't that good at it, because right when you start is kind of the time of the maximum nervousness, right, where things can go wrong, but it's also the time of maximum judgment. That's when your audience or your meeting participants or the people that haven't met you yet are kind of judging you, and they're going, do I trust this person? Do I like this person? Do I want to hear what they want to say? Can they add any value to me? And so on. And if you have scripted that, you will just naturally fall into it. And it's it's an exercise well worth doing, because you can use it over and over again. Even in an elevator pitch, you can take a short version of it, or a 1-2 sentencer of that. Or if you're preparing a marketing documentation, you have that. Or if you're at a dinner and somebody hands you a microphone and says, "Hey, Anric, can you introduce yourself?" You're not, I always go to humor when I'm embarrassed, so you're not coming out with ridiculous, funny statements, which I do very often and I get into trouble for. So that is practiced and it's there. Then your body of the meeting, which is the main discussion, that follows the agenda that you have set out before in a sequential format. And then the conclusion, which I also call the CTA, not commodity trading advisor, but call to action. This is where you meet the outcomes that were set up right in advance of the meeting. So that brings me to point number 5, which is the most difficult but the most rewarding process. Start your meeting with 2 engaging, or what I call enrolling questions. Questions give you control of the room. Questions will give you control of the audience and will bring the audience in to your meeting and engage them or enroll them into your, think of it like a college, and you're enrolling them into your program, into your discussion, into your meeting. And those are the most difficult to actually coin, and we spend a fair amount of energy training our managers and wealth advisors in that, of how to really bring out those questions that engage their audience. Which brings me to point number 6, validate then fascinate. Some of you who are our clients have heard a discussion about this before. Frame a discussion here now, for example, with a teenager or with your spouse or somebody who's angry at you or somebody who doesn't trust you. The process is validate first, then fascinate. Let me explain that. If you are not validated, if somebody hasn't validated your viewpoints, your position, where you're coming from first, you're not really interested to hear what they have to say. And by them validating you authentically, very important, they are showing that they care, that they are interested, they have been listening, and that they are in the right room, okay? So by validating first and then and only fascinating with your brilliance, with your solution, with your offer, with your technology, whatever, you will not fall on those kind of deaf ears, because it's never convince and correct, or correct and convince, which is what a lot of asset managers do. Because look, I get it. You're smarter than me. You're supposed to be smarter than me. I want you to be smarter than me, which is why I want you to manage my assets and help me with these dilemmas and these problems that I have, right? I want you to be smarter than me. But if you don't acknowledge me first and validate me, I'm not really kind of listening. And I find that a lot in the asset management industry, where somebody's walking in and telling me how dumb I am for having built a portfolio that looks like this, right? So, acknowledgement is critically important. Thank them for showing up. Thank them for answering a difficult question, which you need every single time. See, it starts that conditioning and rewards very small steps, because everybody wants to be appreciated. Just don't thank people for their time. I always say to people, stop doing that, because it kind of predisposes that your time is not valuable and that you are a lesser person in the kind of food chain. And that's not a good place to start off with. But thanking them for showing up, thanking them for engaging, thanking them for coming to the party, for answering those difficult questions, it kind of helps you bridge that loan. It also makes you a little more humble, which brings me to step number 7, ETR versus ESP. I have this in my meeting planner all the time, even though it comes naturally to me nowadays. You have to earn the right, ETR, earn the right to be in that meeting. And if you don't create a concrete plan to bring that to the table, it's sometimes you miss it because you need to create your credibility, therefore allowing you this opportunity to earn their trust. And then you can use that for the rest of the meeting, use that for the rest of your life. And it's critically important to actually put some time and effort into that, because the next step is ESP, which is your expert sales positioning. If you have earned the right to be in that meeting, now you've also earned the right to position yourself as an expert, as this trusted advisor in that meeting. And once you have ETR plus ESP, you have the audience eating out of your hand, and that is the way to run a meeting. And the very easiest way to do that is my point number 8, is tune to WIIFM during your meeting. So in every phase of the meeting, part 1, the intro, part 2, the body, part 3, the conclusion, make sure that you are tuned into WIIFM, which stands for What's in It for Me. Because you see, people are not actually interested in you. They're interested in themselves way, way, way more than they are interested in you. And yes, they might be politely listening to what you have to say, but deep down, they really are listening for, here, why are you talking to me? What's in it for me? And that is why I love setting up a meeting in advance, where I'm making sure that in step 1, in the intro, in the body, in the conclusion, I am constantly reinforcing that WIIFM. What's in it for you? And that changes the whole mode of the meeting. Most people who have gone through this training with us actually put their pitch books away. The pitch book is something that you leave and you take out afterwards, almost as documentary evidence, once you've earned the right and once you've earned the respect and the trust. So that brings me to my point number 9, which is critically important in the sequence. I call this recognize the value. It comes again in 3 parts. So before moving to the conclusion and the call to action, pause to formally recognize the value that 1, they are bringing to you. What value are they bringing to you? It makes you humble. It brings gratitude into the equation. It recognizes that they are valuable. You see, I'm validating them first, right? Secondly, what value do I bring to them? What value am I now bringing to the table? Because I validated them first, they're now listening to what I have to say, right? And then thirdly, what value that working together will bring to them, to their clients, to their family members, to their partners, to their universe, okay? What is the benefit of the benefit? So what is the ultimate value that working together will bring? So first, what value are they bringing? Secondly, what value are you bringing to them? Thirdly, what working together will bring to the good of the world, to the good of their clients, to the good of everybody, okay? So at that point, you pause and you ask for permission to proceed, to move to the next step, be that the conclusion, be that the offer, be that the sales pitch. You see, people don't mind being marketed to or being sold to. They just hate being tricked and manipulated, right? So if you pause after having gone through all of these steps and you ask for permission to move forward and say, I would love to now move forward and give you a blatant sales pitch to earn your business. Would you be okay with that? Everybody will go, yeah, they can't wait to hear what you're going to say next. And you see, when you are leading people and you have control of the room in an authentic, kind of nice manner, people appreciate knowing the steps of where you're going to take them because they want to go there. They would not have agreed to the meeting in the first place if they didn't think that you had either a solution to a problem that they have or that you can help them with an outcome that they don't yet have, right? But by pausing, asking for permission, they're now formally engaging in that process. And there's another win out of that, because by having asked that permission, it actually allows you to, and you've now just earned the right to hear their response, to actually have them make a decision and have them give you their feedback. You see what I mean? And I love being in business like that because everybody knows what's coming next. So that's when you go to the conclusion. So here I normally do something rather unique. It might or might not work for you. So you've got to decide. I clear the table. I take away everything. I've taken away everything I've just given you. I take away the laptops, the iPads, all of this stuff. If there's a whiteboard behind me, I clean that up, and I take out a pen and paper. I don't have one, but here we go. Pen and paper. And I write down single bullet points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no more than that, of the actual things that we have agreed to, any decisions that we've made, any conclusions that we came up with, any follow-up that is required, all that kind of stuff. Even if it's negative and we have decided not to proceed, let's write it down, because at that point something interesting happens where the meeting changes, it's kind of personality at that point. They become part of that page and they become part of that agreement. And even if it's kind of negative, they'll kind of start squirming and they'll go, you really should talk to my brother. He has a very interesting family office that is allowed to invest in these kind of things. We can't because of these and these reasons, but then they'll normally give you 2 or 3 people that you should be calling if you've done all of those other steps. Or what you would very often get is, you might have slipped this one through where a partner that needs to make a decision isn't in the meeting, okay? At that point, you have this kind of summary and you go, okay, so here's what we'll do. Number 1, let's agree a time and a place for the next meeting, because, let's save ourselves 10 emails and 20 phone calls about trying to find a mutually convenient time. Let's set that now. And then number 2, let me get these meeting notes and these key summaries of our decision to your partner, because I really respect that, and I appreciate the fact that you don't want to go over his head and you want to involve him. But here's what I can do. By bringing these notes to your partner, I can bring him up to, maybe 80% of the speed of this meeting, so that he's not starting from scratch and coming into the meeting as a stranger. So here's my number 1 point, point number 2, point number 3, point number 4. And if at any point you missed the boat or you missed the feedback, they will then correct you and they'll go, no, I didn't say I'm not interested. I just need to see this and I need to see that, I need to see that. And there is a wonderful gift that comes out of that, because you don't have these meetings that end up in like, I'll get back to you. Now, I hate that, because that's almost like being like told to go fly a kite somewhere, because you're basically circling around, the runway of Heathrow Airport until you run out of fuel. It's not really fair to you. It's not really fair to them. So that's why I started this 10-step process. And I actually have a meeting planner that I have in that, where I have these key points covered. And some of them, obviously, like the introduction, tends to be always the same, but maybe slightly modified for a particular instance. I have my reminders that, authentic is 1,000 times better than perfect. Any key information that should have been shared, my intentions are written right at the top of the meeting. I put the reminder in there to validate, then fascinate. Validate, then fascinate. Don't take over control of the meeting and just start talking about yourself without having validated them first, without having earned the right to expertly position yourself as their trusted advisor. A reminder on my meeting notes, tune into WIIFM, and then in step 9, as I told you, recognize the value that they bring, recognize the value that you bring, recognize the value that you bring together, and how the world or the business or their clients will be better off by you working together, type of thing. You know what I mean? So that's it. I had meant to make this very short. It got a lot longer than I had anticipated, but I really do hope that you got a lot out of it, and that you can take 5, 6, 7 points out of this and embrace them into your meeting culture. And if you liked it and you found it useful, I would really appreciate it if you like it, or you share the post if this found you via LinkedIn or Facebook, or forward it. Give me some comments and feedback. If you think that I could make this any better, I would love to hear your feedback. If you are not part of our community, please enter your details, join our community. We are about 22,000 people across the world that are all benefiting from each other's wisdom, knowledge, and experience. And most of us actually really appreciate being able to contribute and, provide positive ideas and resources to our environment. So we would love to have you in the team. So hit the button below and subscribe and sign up. Thank you.